There I am. They needed to wake up too. I feel like you're all a little scared of me, so everybody in back needs to kind of move up and fill these boxes. Come on up. Come on up. Farther back? Are they scared of me, or do I have coffee breath, or... Oh, I'm starting to feel the love now. There we go. So you're maturing in the Lord. That's awesome. There we go. Oh yeah. Okay. All right. The kingdom has come. You guys need to wake up a little bit. If it makes you feel any better, it's not quite 5 in the morning my time, so we're all in this together. When about the time we were planting the church that I'm a part of now, there was a young woman in my church named Veronica, Vern, we call her, and she started having dreams in the night. And every night she would dream about women and girls being tortured and chained up and abused, and especially sexually abused and oppressed in the worst ways. They're very sort of graphic and disturbing dreams. And she dreamt that every night for months. And came to my office one day and said with great sincerity, I think I might be going crazy. I can't figure out what's happening to me emotionally that I should be having such crazy dreams so consistently. It's just deeply disturbing. Her language was much more colorful than that, but that's essentially what she was conveying to me. And my response to her was, well, I think you're fine. I just think the Lord is probably telling you something. There's a situation that you need to attend to. And then she said, oh, so maybe this isn't me being emotionally disturbed. Maybe there's some direction, there's some calling in this. And without much deduction, or inference, I guess it would be, we decided that she probably needed to look into issues of sort of sex trafficking and slavery and stuff like that in our city. And she did something incredibly powerful. She responded. She responded to what the Lord was saying to her in her spirit. Vern being Vern, what she did is that she went out to this area in our city near Waikiki, sort of the big tourist area, which the locals refer to as the track. It's the place where all the prostitutes walk and all the illicit business goes on in Waikiki. The reason our city is such a center for such things is because, of course, we have a huge tourist trade and American and Japanese tourists. And she didn't know anything about that scene, but she likes cigars. So she went out and sat on a busy street corner and just smoked cigars for several weeks, and just watched. And in that short amount of time, she learned, a lot of the girls that work the track, and was able to identify the pimps, and we call them the watchers that sort of oversee the business, and and sort of how the thing works, and also got to know some of the cops that walked the beat and were, through omission, mostly complicit in the trade, and she just kind of became a presence out there. And then one evening, when she was driving home from work, she got a call from one of these cops and said, look, we just did this bust and blah, 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 yada, yada. And we've got this underage girl, and, frankly, I don't want to deal with her. Would you take her? And Vern said, sure. And then in a text that has become legendary in our church, she texted her husband, Lee, and said, on my way home from work, bringing home a prostitute, hope that's okay. And to his credit, he did not respond. He just sat there wondering what was going to happen. And so Vern brought her home, and that started what was essentially our first safe house. And now we have a few. And in due time, Vern became probably the recognized authority on that issue in our city, one of two. The other one started coming to our church as well. She was a very colorful figure, very militant lesbian woman who sort of was coming back to Jesus, and just became a very interesting duo. Together wrote Hawaii's first ever anti-human trafficking legislation, which we got passed by the legislature a couple years later. And now when the cops are going to do a big bust, it is common for them to call Vern just to tip her off, or they've even taken her on raids with her, called her to the station, put a flak jacket on her and said, we're going in, and they'll sort of raid some cheap hotel near Waikiki, and if they come upon a situation they don't want to handle, some underage girl or some situation that's a little too sticky, the cops will in unison turn the other way and just sort of give the girls to Vern. He takes them home, and it's just become this great and colorful story that's been very constructive for our church. I mentioned now our church is running this crazy justice restaurant at which we employ a lot of these women who have come through our ministry, and they're sort of reintroducing themselves to society in a way that's filled with a bit more dignity. And anyway, so it's just become a great story that continues to expand. It's really fun to tell. It has become a fantastic testimony from our church to the city because it's the best sort of sermon. It's far better than any sort of sermon I could ever give in a church. It's a sermon that's changing the fabric of the city, and people are paying attention. And it started with somebody responding to some dreams. All of the great stories really begin with somebody responding to typically a supernatural overture from the Lord. If you think about it, the Bible is stuff that people wrote down after having supernatural encounters with God. That's a fair summary of all of Scripture. And if you want a Scripture-worthy life, probably for you it will come from a response that you make to what will likely be a supernatural overture from the Lord. The Lord will say something to you, you'll have some sort of experience, some revelatory, some sort of redirective experience with the supernatural living God, and you will respond. I think that's the secret to living the sort of life that you all want to lead, right? I mean, you want that life, right? You don't want a boring life. You don't want a worldly life. You don't want a successful career and a well-planned retirement. Oh my gosh, that would be horrible. You are such likable, talented people. I would hate to see you go that way, right? You want a life worth talking about. You want a life that someday your great-grandchildren will talk about. I had an ancestor. She was whacked. ... And the rest is history. So that's why I love prophecy. That's why I love dreams in particular, because dreams are sneaky prophecy. They're stealth prophecy. They sneak up on you. It's the Lord talking to you all the time, and usually it's just you having to realize that He is. So I said this morning that we would work together and try to interpret the prophetic dreams that you had last night, which I know you all had because I asked for them. And I'm God's favorite. Thank you. That's the one point That's right. She may come to the front of the class. So I dreamt. How many of you, I won't say how many of you dreamt last night. I'll say how many of you remember your dreams. Research shows that humans dream on average 6 times a night. So if you remember nothing, that's not my fault. It's because you did not keep a tablet by your bed and write down one sentence the moment that you woke up. That's why you don't remember. But how many of you remember dreams that you had last night? And who would like to share one for interpretation? I enter this caveat that you have to be able to share it in 60 seconds, right? So you got to compose yourself, and you have to be able to just tell the dream at a run, okay? Sort of get it in your mind. This further instruction, I don't care what's happening in your life. I don't care why you might have had this dream. One of the keys to successful dream interpretation is that you interpret the dream on its own terms and then apply it to your life. Don't try to figure out why you had the particular dream and interpret it that way. Just let the dream be the language that it is. All right, so who wants to try? Who wants to share a dream? Yes, ma'am.
So it was really short.
Short, I like that.
Because it was short, I know I have time to tell you this one thing. And it's not, and it's that I kept waking up and having the sense that I had a dream, but I couldn't remember it, so I kept going back to sleep.
So I managed to fill your sleep with anxiety. Excellent. Fantastic.
And it was very, very generous, especially when I was like 8 in the morning, I'm like, I have to go back to sleep. But yeah, so I dreamed I'm a foster mom, and I had 2 former foster daughters.
Don't need to know that. Tell me the dream. I mean, I do need to know that because that's wonderful. That's fantastic. But for the sake of your dream. Okay. Okay, your 2 foster kids are in the dream. That's good.
So 2 former foster daughters, and in the dream they came to stay with us. And they both had bruises on their faces,
Uh-huh.
on their nose and on their cheeks. They both had bruises. And that's all I remember.
Oh, so do you think there was more to the dream? But that's the snippet that you remember? Is that how it feels? Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like something there would be more to that. But so I don't know if you guys heard that, but in the dream, or at least the dream fragment, Jen had her two former foster daughters, or daughters that she formerly fostered, returned, came back to your house, or I assume something like that. But they had bruises, and like bruises on their face, on their cheeks, and on their nose, you said, specifically. So that's poignant. Without having more of that, I don't know that I could interpret the meaning. So when I have a fragment like that seems very poignant, and I don't know what else went with it, then that's something I'll usually take to prayer. It's like, Lord, what's going on? I imagine that there's just sort of a natural amount of concern that you have when your foster children move out and go on with their lives. That's the ministry of fostering all over. It's like you only get them for so long, and it's also the power of it, I think. So there's some concern about what's happening with them. The good news in the dream, so to speak, if you could consider it such, is that these bruises were on their faces. It was part of their countenance, which means a couple things. One, it was obvious, which in a way is helpful, and it was part of the face that they showed to the world. The face is an incredibly symbolic part of the body, and so they are appearing bruised. The face they are turning to the world looks damaged, and that should be clear, and should be attended to. It should be obvious. So I would be interested in what else went along with it. This is something that you can take to prayer, but I think the situation is addressable, if there is such a word, and it should be something that you are able to speak into. So that's cool. That sounds like part of the ministry that you do. Does that make sense? So there's that much. Yeah, God bless them. God bless you for fostering. That just an awesome, heart-filled ministry. That we have some foster families in my church. I'm just always stunned by what they accomplish. Who else? Somebody else has a dream? Yes. That was the dream. Somebody else's consciousness. Trippy. Yeah. Okay, so I don't know if you all heard that, but I'm sorry, what's your name? Marilyn was in a living room in the dream, and I love it that you just kind of rattle off the characteristics of the setting, because all of those things are usually meaningful and symbolic. She said, I'm sitting in an oversized leather chair or on a leather sofa. There is a white rug beneath you. And there was you said a very large TV, big screen TV in the corner. And then there was a remarkable sense or feeling to the dream. You felt relieved or even a mounting joy. You felt like the place had been a place of stagnation, but that apparently the season had changed. And so there was there was an expectation. Yeah, and she was sitting and taking it in, and in some way being part of a shared consciousness, as I would put it. What? It felt like somebody else's life, sort of a foreign life. Great, I like that. What does it mean? Let's workshop this a little bit together. Some tips on dream language. You start from the broad things and you work your way down. So the big motifs, the big symbols, the setting, sort of the style and the feel, and then you work your way down to the individual symbols and crack them. So what do you think this dream is about generally? Or what are some of the things that would give you a clue? Yeah, Tim. The state of someone's living or being. Brilliant, because this is a living room. You have dreams set in different rooms of the house. All the rooms will have different meanings. And so the living room, or if it's a classic living room, sort of a den, sort of the personal or the family space, then it will probably have to do with the state of living or the state of life. Brilliant. Kitchens usually have to do with things pertaining to preparation of different sort. There's usually a salon or a family or a dining area will have to do with fellowship or community. Bathroom will have to do with purification or purity of some sort. Bedroom will have to do with rest or intimacy, and it goes on from there. It's not so hard to crack those symbols, just pay attention to them. And the first thing that Marilyn said was, I was in a living room, which is like, symbol. So state of living, state of life. Excellent. What else? There was a change here. There was a change from stagnation to life, is one way to put it. So we would probably say, well, this is about life change. This is about life situation change. There's a season of life thing going on here, and the new one sounds good. And the old one was stagnant, but this sounds filled with potential. Love it. All right, so now we're kind of dialing down. What's going on in life that this wonderful change should be happening? What are some of the clues we see in the dreams? The room was clean, well ordered. That's helpful. Wasn't cluttered. Good pickup. Yep. The inexplicably white rug. Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, because it stood out to Marilyn, so. It's white, yeah. Clean, fresh, new, white, yeah. White will speak of something that's purified or made new. In Scripture, white is often the color of the Lord's purpose. Made white in all those Old Testament passages usually means restored unto purpose. So it's purposeful and it's right. So excellent, good call.
I love that, the oversized couch. Is like, to me, just meant like the abundance of God's comfort and rest. Like, you're not just on a couch, it's like there's just so much of it.
Yeah. So an oversized leather chair or couch, it was just So it just speaks of abundance and comfort and space, and that's a very encouraging symbol as well. Great. What else? What's this about? How is this restoration, this change taking place? I mean, what's going on here that this should happen? Correct the other symbols. She remarked on one or two other things.
I think having a very large TV but pushed into the corner was kind of like putting away or kind of like letting go of the more material things.
A very large TV pushed in the corner sounds like a letting go of material things. Presumably there the TV would represent worldliness or something like that, what have you. Could, yeah.
Or like potentially like room for activity instead of like standing and watching things happen, like it's pushed to the side so that you can like participate in living as opposed to just like
Push to the side, the sort of making space for more activity. The TV was in the corner, I think she said, not pushed aside, but it was a very large TV, Jen.
That you're using television as a way to hear from God as well. So I don't know for Marilyn whether that's TV, but putting more material things in the actually seeing or hearing from God.
So Jen recalls that last night when I was chatting about the different ways people perceive prophetically, I used TV as one of my teaching metaphors. TV is a good symbol for supernatural perception because it takes invisible information and it turns it into vision and sound. So maybe it has something to do with that. I'm inclined to go that way because it's a big TV. I mean, this sounds like what you would call a TV room. It's got, it's big vision. There's nothing on it right then and there, but it is a symbol of prophecy. It's a symbol of vision and perception, and it's big, and it's in this great room that seems well ordered. Otherwise, it is not misplaced. It's there and it's present, and so I actually take that as a positive symbol, and then I might start to do some application at this point. You have a comfortable, well ordered, purposeful room of vision in your life. And that does sound wonderful, doesn't it? Everything is there for you. And you feel like you're sort of, in this dream, participating in someone else's life or someone else's consciousness. That might simply be an aspect of the newness of it, like, wow, it doesn't even feel like my life anymore. It feels like, this is, like I say, like a shared consciousness, or just, it's like you're trying something else on, and it doesn't, it's not familiar yet, but wow, it feels fresh. Wow, it feels potentiary, whatever the verb would be, the adjective would be. And then, of course, we talked about vision and prophecy and perception last night, so it makes sense that the Lord would send you a little encouraging thing and say, oh yeah, Marilyn, there are things I haven't even shown you yet, but we're ready. All the pieces are there, and it's just, the table is set for you, so to speak. It sounds awesome. Did Gideon have a hand up?
I was wondering if maybe it was like, that actually sounds like a cool description for a kid that. So I was wondering if maybe that was like since you guys are in you're moving together, you're coming together, that you're like getting a glimpse into something about his world and being able to share it. But that's just.
Yeah, I just told her that I thought that she was in my consciousness.
That's kind of where he's at.
Yeah.
Everything you just said.
Uh-huh. So you recognize personally that the situation of the dream sort of applies to Tim's life, and Marilyn and Tim are engaged. Is that what's going on here? It's not a prophecy, it's just a description. Then maybe you're sort of getting the feel of what you're entering into. I mean, what was formerly one consciousness is about to become two, the two made one and all that stuff. So maybe you're getting a feel for that. Could be. Tim doesn't figure in the dream, and it's kind of, he's not present. If you were like, and Tim's socks were on the floor, and then that would tell me something. But yeah, the whole image of the dream changed. The rug was white, but so hard to say that the dream was about Tim's consciousness, but it's set up for some sort of sharing, some sort of interpersonal thing, and so that might be indicative, depending on what Tim dreamt last night. So we'll check in a moment. Just kidding.
For me, I saw just like a rest. There's nothing else to do. Everything is clean. You can just sit back. There are no distractions. It's not like, I can't do this because I have a lot going on. And I just think there's a sense of peace where you just can sit back and just see and be with the Lord. I don't know if you naturally are more organized or not person. And so, but I feel like there's just this, for me, because I can be a very disorganized person, there's something in that which really applies to me.
Yeah, I mean, I went to the college conference a couple weeks ago, and the guy prophesied over me. He said, "You're in a season of rest." Or I'm in a season of rest. I am.
Sounds very exciting. Sounds like you're in a place for a big vision to come, and that's my favorite part of what you described. Sounds really cool. Another one?
I was just going to ask you, I wonder if, I don't know, first thing to mind was the whole concept of a TV that's not showing anything in this place of rest. I feel like, I wonder if TV could also be, it's so passive. When you watch TV, you watch things go by. So I wonder if there's any piece of like watching, like the former stagnation was watching life go by, and now it's a good place of travel, vision and growth.
So the thought here is, if you couldn't hear it, that TV is so passive, though, that maybe what's going on here is that formerly things were too passive, and now things are changing and becoming more proactive, and that's what you're thinking, and the dream is indicative of that. Could be. TV, I can tell in this crowd, is a very potent symbol because everybody has an emotional reaction to TV. It's like, well, TV is a distraction. I'm glad it's in the corner, or TV is too passive and stuff like that. I caution you against becoming too emotionally attached to your symbols that appear in your dreams and your visions, and just sort of read them in the same way that you would read, a stream of hieroglyphics or something like that. You have to interpret a dream on its own terms. And this particular dream had a certain sense to it, a certain feeling, a certain gestalt, right? The dream was about a readiness and a change and an excitement. And so I would encourage you to interpret the symbols in that fashion. This wasn't a dream about warfare, Maryland versus TV. That's not what the dream was about, because it had a certain setting. And so interpret the symbols in that fashion. I would... TV is passive, I suppose. And remember, symbols in context, we talked about this last night. If you were being attacked by a demonic TV in your dream, then TV would represent a certain thing. If you had a big TV, but you couldn't find a place to plug in the power, that dream would be about a lack of empowerment in your life. So context does influence how you crack symbols. But this TV was in an excellent living room where everything was in order, ready to go. And so I would encourage you to interpret it in that fashion. But take one more, and then let's move on to other dreams, and just because we're workshopping, we're learning a little bit here. Yes, sir. All right, Minerva. No, Minera. There you go.
When we were there on Thursday night, John said something about maybe having, like, the Lord revealing himself to you in ways that he had never revealed himself, and speaking in ways that he hadn't spoken to you before. And so the idea that it is a consciousness, like you said, maybe it's even unfamiliar, but
All right, so the comment was confirmatory. Earlier, I guess Robin had given you a word about the Lord beginning to speak to you in new ways or something like, don't let me paraphrase incorrectly. And so now this dream seems to be about at least a potential for the Lord speaking in a new way. So things start to mount up. That's usually how the Lord talks to us. Robin also told her to specifically pray that the Lord would give her dreams. You get what you ask for. Sure, and probably more to come then, so sounds wonderful. How about another dream? Yes, sir.
So I had a dream last night that I was at like a party or a social gathering of some sort.
Uh-huh.
And the people that were there, and for lack of a better term, would be like social outcasts.
Uh-huh.
Specific to that, yeah.
At a party filled with social outcasts. That sounds biblical.
And so there was one guy there, and I met him, and we warmed up to one another, and I guess we became friends. And then in the dream, there was another man who came in, and that man was being very antagonistic to like my new friend, and he tried to turn that antagonism towards me, and I like cornered him in a wall, told him not to do that, and so he stopped picking on me, and he went and picked back on my friend, and he eventually got really, really violent with his friend. And I remember there was a specific scene where like he was like choking him pretty hard, like in a headlock. And so I defended this friend. I ended up like being in a fight with this guy.
Uh-huh.
He eventually like left the scene. And then I remember the last part was me picking up this friend because he was pretty badly wounded, and I carried him out of the scene on my back, and that was.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that can't possibly be symbolic or significant, that dream. So I don't know if you caught all that. What's his name? Is it George? George had this dream where he was at a party, and the party was filled with social outcasts, as term. And your friend was from among the outcasts?
So I don't know. I didn't necessarily get a vibe like, oh, I'm a friend with a social outcast.
Right. You were just making friends. Oh, he makes a new friend at the party. They hit it off. They made friends, and then this fellow shows up at the party and is antagonistic, starts picking on the friend, starts picking on George. George responds by backing him to the corner and sort of exerting a little authority. Leave me alone. He does, but then the rude fellow starts picking on George's new friend and puts him in a headlock and roughs him up pretty good until George has to intervene and fight him off. And eventually the guy flees, and George picks up his friend, now wounded, and carries him away on his back. Sounds good. Anything about the guy that was remarkable, his appearance, other than his antagonistic attitude?
I noticed a few things. One, me and everybody in the dream, we were all wearing black.
They're all wearing black in the dream? Theme party.
Black party. Right? And the other thing about that was that we were all also black. Okay? So well, let me say, the three main characters of the dream were black. Everyone else there was pretty mixed.
So people at the party were mixed race, or they were all African American?
Mixed races.
Mixed races.
But the three main characters.
The three main characters were all dark skinned, and wearing black.
Everybody.
Okay. Yeah. So I asked about that just because you get a feel for how dreams work. Like, tell me about the appearance of the people, and because in this dream, I think it's obvious that the people are symbolic, right? And so what you do is you ask about them. Yes, about the symbol. You're not dreaming about particular people, that your new friend and your new enemy. They're symbols of something. Okay? Cool. What does it mean? Let's go. What's going on here? Move from large down to specific. What's the dream about in general terms? Conflict. It's obviously a conflictual dream, yeah? Justice. How so? Just unpack that a little bit.
For me, I know when somebody attacks me, I'm like, you know what, you can do whatever you want. But when somebody attacks somebody that I care about or somebody that cannot defend themselves, I take that very strongly and I feel very protective of people.
Right, so this dream, George was defending someone else. And so in that sense, it was a dream about justice. It was about sticking up for someone who is oppressed, so to speak. Yeah. Tim?
I think it's just in general about how he relates to a group of people he doesn't understand.
So there's something going on here about George relating to a group of people that he doesn't understand, or at least doesn't know, because he's making new friends and gathering in from people from the margins, evidently. Yeah, so something about that, some sort of bridge thing happening there. Yeah, Nara?
He came later. He wasn't, I don't feel like he was there in the beginning. He came after like part of that side of his life. So he came after.
So it makes me think, kind of a leap, but it makes me think that that person that came later was not necessarily one of the outcasts, and that it was sort of a almost demonic figure that was attacking the people that George was supporting.
The person that came later was not part of that. The party scene wasn't part of the outcasts gathered, but evidently some sort of malevolent or demonic figure that was attacking the scene, attacking justice or something like that. Sure, that makes sense. There's a hand over here somewhere, sorry. Someone else have a comment?
Is there anything like about the Senate, any capital people, like, do you know, have any sense of like where it was, or when it was, the night, the day, or anything?
Yeah, and when he was talking about the importance of like the surrounding, I wanted to go through as well. I don't have any real idea about that. I remember the surroundings were like gray, the furniture was also black.
Wow, furniture was black, clothing was black.
Color black when you do depression, like the color itself, outside of like race, is the color, it's like appearing a lot, and it has this sort of like luminous.
Yeah, so the question here, the question was, does black have anything to do with oppression? Because it keeps appearing everywhere. I have a theory about that in this particular dream, but clearly in this dream, the color scape is significant. And so it sort of begs the question, what's going on here in this dream that this should be the case? The three main characters were dark-skinned, were African-American. The gathering was mixed race. The attire and the upholstery and everything else was sort of shades of gray, sort of black, gray furniture, so that does say something, and we need to figure that out. Yeah. And your last name is Black. Something is going on here. I don't know what it is. We're going to get to the bottom of this. Marilyn has a comment. We'll take a couple more comments, and then we'll run at the interpretation. Go ahead. The person who was the aggressor looked the same as everyone in the sense that also dressed in black. Yeah, just antagonistic. And there was one more hand over here. Gideon?
I was just going to the connection between everything being black and gray and him being George Black is that this is referring to like his inner way.
Gideon.
This is all the
Psychoanalytical here. It's like his name is Black. Everyone is dressed in black. And so maybe this has to do with something internal to Mr. Black. Could be. And then we'd have to go to like befriending himself, fighting with himself, and stuff like that, which may be part of it. All right, the very last comment right here, Tim.
What was the fight like? So was it like you were like throwing punches and you were like in a rage trying to like, wreck them, or were you just sort of like just trying to like really enjoy sort of wrestling with him down? I was like, we left about punches. So you're just like a rage, like a scrap.
It was a scrap. And the end of the dream, George puts the wounded friend on his back, carries him off. All right, what's going on here in this dream? We kind of know it has something to do with outcasts and justice and conflict and stuff like that. I would call this, dreams have different sort of types, so this feels like a concept dream to me. I mean, there's some high concept being communicated here in this dream, something that's supposed to be fruitful and instructive. The dream is about bridge building and sort of defending the weak in this case and sticking up for what's right. There's sort of defending yourself, and then there's sort of defending someone else. It's a rather rich tableau, as we say. Anybody have any other major insight to add in terms of interpretation? Matt, do you have some? God throws lots of parties. Yeah, I mean, it has a Jesus signature to it, a party of outcasts, sort of a gathering of outcasts. God is in here somewhere, for sure. There's something godly going on, yeah.
So, I guess, to me, it's the idea of like, I don't know, but like, so everyone's wearing black, you're wearing black, presumably, maybe it's significant tied to your name in the sense of like your ministry, sort of, like the provision, like the space of your ministry, and the guy that comes in and attacks your friend, he doesn't attack like everyone else, he attacks the person that you're close to and then tries to attack you. And so it seems like, I don't know, some kind of confrontation against like you or your ministry to be representative of you. And then like you essentially have to be the person that like expels. So that's my
Yeah? Yeah. So if you heard that, but in the dream, George was identifying with, right? It's not, first he defends himself, but then he basically defends someone else and then puts the person on his back. So there have been a couple comments about, well, maybe this is about your identity and stuff like that. This is also a dream about identifying. George is like, no, these, by the end, it's clear that George is like, these are my people. I am they are I. And who are George's people in this dream? The outcasts? What else about them? They're all wearing black. Different ethnicities. Yeah. So if I were to sort of give thematic statements to the dream, one thing that strikes me in this dream is that everybody's the same. I mean, everybody's different, but everybody's the same. You have this mixed race, mixed class gathering, but they're all the same, right? Because they're all dressed the same. there's a blurring of distinction. And the dream is a nice interplay between distinctions and a lack of distinctions. You know, by the end, very quickly, everybody's the same, and George is part of them. You know, doesn't matter what color you are, we all wear the same uniform in the end. You know, it's sort of like that. In a sense, this dream is colorless, right? We're talking about the presence of black, but one thing that strikes me is the absence of any other color, which is one way of seeing the world. I mean, you kind of see color and ethnicity, but you kind of don't. And that seems to be going on in the dream, right? There's blacks and there's grays, and it lets everybody fit together. There are different classes, but kind of not. Different people, but kind of not. And what George is fighting against in the dream is just that spirit of antagonism that divides and conquers, you know? And that spirit of antagonism will, again, come in a guy. I mean, the guy attacking you and attacking your friend wasn't of a different race. You know, I mean, that's not the issue. What's the issue? The issue is the spirit of it, you know? And there's sort of this interplay. Am I being clear? That seems to be what the dream is about. Make sense? And so it's clear that it's just spirit. There's a spirit concept going on here. What spirit are you going to move in? Well, there's the spirit that brings people together, and then there's the spirit of violence and antagonism that just seems arbitrary. You know, you find it everywhere. And what do you do when you find it? Don't overthink, just kick its ass. That's the only thing you can do, right? And that's what you do, commendably. And what do you do if somebody's hurt? You help them. What do you do to somebody who's oppressed? You help them. Keep it simple. And that's what you do in the dream. What if keep it simple? It seems to me, I feel like I'm not articulating that very well, but do you see it? It's just a beautiful and powerful dream that way. Tom. So now Todd, like knowing George, begins to personalize it a little bit and say, well, George, this is just what you do. You know, you find gatherings of outcasts and you befriend people and you kind of do your thing, and there's some sort of spiritual attack that will come against that, and Todd is sort of encouraging you, never give in to that sort of attack. So this is, you know, application now. But sure, I mean, you'd guess that given the dream. It's like, dude, this is just a calling on your life, and different things are going to come against it. You know, accusations from familiar quarters and unfamiliar, and you're just like, you know, again, don't overthink it and don't hesitate, just kick its ass and move on. Lovely? Yes? A couple more?
Just to add on to what Todd was saying, when I was hearing the dream, I was like, this is what a shepherd does. Like, you're the one in authority in the dream. Like, you see the wolf that comes in, you arrest it, you know, that's my sheep. And then just the spirit of you carrying your friend out on your back.
Sounds pretty biblical, doesn't it? Throwing a sheep on your shoulders, and so the diagnosis was, this sounds like a shepherd to me. And I could not agree more. This is a shepherd's dream. This little sermon that I do sometimes about the good shepherd, you know, Jesus is teaching about the good shepherd, and I have been scarred by that Sunday school picture of the good shepherd with the soft lens, Jesus with the lamb on his shoulders, and Jesus looks so friendly and soft. But that's not what a shepherd was, particularly back in ancient Palestine. A shepherd was more like the Clint Eastwood cowboy. You know, shepherds were rugged individuals. You know, these were guys that fought off lions and bears with stones and sticks. And I think we need to adjust our image of the good shepherd from like soft lens Jesus to Clint Eastwood in High Plains Drifter. Like, you're beating up my sheep. That's my image of what a shepherd is. And that's totally the image of George in this dream. You picking on my friend? I will pummel you into dust. Like, yes. So I would guess very much. Like, this is a man with a shepherd's spirit. I love it. Yeah, so good insight in the dream. First, George wins a personal battle, and then he wins an interpersonal defensive battle. So we tend to be strong against things that we've conquered in our personal life. And awesome dream, awesome. Let's do one more dream, and then we'll talk about empowerment. So anybody have one more quick one we can workshop? Yeah, in the back. Excellent.
This trip was kind of fragmented, and confusing. So it was about perfume, and I was with a couple people, and we were talking about perfume and like finding the right perfume. And I think one of the people I was with, and I just like remember the friend that they're not specific people, was like a perfume professional. Who prescribed perfumes for people. And we were talking about one person who was not in the room, this perfume professional prescribed like a royal pill perfume that you like take the perfume as like a pill.
Uh-huh. Cutscene one. And there were other scenes?
There was, but it was really fuzzy. It was something about like, all that I wrote down was Bethany.
You don't remember, but that was a good dream.
Like royal pill thing, and then somebody, there's this sort of like, yeah, in the perfume context, let them take whatever that means.
Cool. So this was a dream with multiple scenes, and I call those episodic dreams. And you ever had one of those dreams where it's like, oh, the scene kept changing. First I was here, and then suddenly the room became a circus, and then I was on a battleship, and it just kind of jarringly takes you. Usually what those are a collection of dreams. They're not like different scenes, but they're different dream expressions of the same point. Episodic dreams are really easy to interpret because all you need to do is find the common thread in all of them, and then usually they interpret themselves. It's really easy. So it sounds like this was one of those, which is indicative of God, really trying to speak a concept to you. But we have one scene anyway, so we can work on that one. And in the scene, is it Ruth? She was at some gathering with some people, and they were discussing perfume, and there was perfume diagnosis happening, and there was a perfume professional in the room, so that, yeah, again, this can't possibly be symbolic. And the perfume professional was talking about someone who was not present, but saying, oh, this person needs the royal pill perfume, where they take a pill and then they smell royally, or something like that. And end scene. So it was about diagnosing type of perfume that people should have, the type of fragrance that they should have, and apparently how to get it. So what's that about? You can at least take it that far. Yeah. When she said perfume, the first thing you thought about was the aroma of Christ. You went to Scripture. Excellent. That's a great way to crack cymbals. So the aroma of Christ, the fragrances. I mean, generally that's about what? The aroma of Christ. Character, yeah. Present, what? It's about something we're not quite sure yet, right? Yeah. Yeah, so thinking about the Old Testament prophetic passage where, the prophet eats the scroll, it's tastes like honey, is bitter in the stomach, but as you sort of take in the word, you exude some sort of wordly quality, presumably. There's a hand back here, yeah.
I thought rather than putting it externally on the skin and taking it internally, like our fragrance of Christ comes from within, not on the outside.
Yeah, so there's definitely something going on here, right? Instead of like spraying perfume on externally, just sort of cover up your inherent odor. What you do is that you take something internally, and then it comes from the inside out. So obviously, that's very powerful. And this wasn't any perfume. This was the royal perfume. So, sort of symbolic of really imbibing royalty. Being royal on the inside, you smell royal on the outside. So it's about internal change. And this person who was not in the room, do you know who it is? It was just some unidentifiable person, a type then. There's a type of person who worries about the sort of external presence, but the diagnosis is no, change on the inside. And doctor yourself on the inside, and then you won't have to worry about the outside. So lots of life application there, right? That's an easy one. And, and it's provocative, something to think about. Well, how do you imbibe royalty? Great question to think about, but obviously a fruitful one. A couple more comments. Julian?
You did something unorthodox with the perfume, namely you had to take it in, and you did that per the trust you had for the perfume professional. So there's a relationship there that allowed you to then do something that seemed weird by others.
Seems weird to swallow perfume, but, you're dealing with a professional, so it's okay, right? So in other words, this is really good advice, even though it might seem a little bit unorthodox. You can trust this. Yeah, it's a great little construct in your dream. I like that.
Perfume was just a big deal in this world. Everybody.
This was perfume world. Everybody cared very much about perfume. Uh-huh.
And I guess the sense that I got as I was kind of praying about it in my faculty was just a connection between this perfume and prophecy. And yeah, just the sort of, like everyone trying to figure out their perfume, just very much in sort of the context of this conference. I felt like
Perfume was a very potent symbol in this dream. It had to do with, there's something going on here with identity and revelation and personal revelation and stuff like that. Perfume world. Dreams sometimes are like that. This is a world where the currency is fragrance. And it fits. let's just leave it there. And we'll move on. I mean, you generally get the idea. Everybody stand up and give your neighbors high fives. It's like, good job. Way to sleep, people. Way to sleep. Do the little 5-second shoulder rub thing with your neighbors. Move your limbs. There you go. This is ministry. This is ministry. Shake out your legs.
That's good.
All right. Shake it out. Have a seat. Let's blow through a teaching on empowerment. We'll take a break. What time are we supposed to break? Want to take a break now? What time are we supposed to end this morning? At 12? We started half an hour late. Come on. All right. All right. Let's ask the expert. All right. So we have till 12:30. We got to be clear by 12:30. So let's go. I'm not going to release you for a 5-minute break. You have to sit down and listen. This is your penalty for dreaming. George?
Concerning dreams, so as we were talking about my dream, there seemed to be like, there were multiple stuff, but there were two big ideas that I had, right? One was like internal, like, one was external, was like me and my relationship to people, and then one was that like the idea that they were more of an internal conflict, right? So I was just wondering, like, to what degree are dreams have like multiple places, like multiple meanings?
Yeah, can dreams work on different levels? And yeah, sure they can. And I think I made a point last night about prophecies unfolding over time. You have to walk with them. And sometimes as you go through life, you'll realize that your prophecies, your dreams have meanings that were even deeper than you guessed at the beginning. And, that's certainly true. They grow in meaning over time. God is that good at his art that as you meditate on it, you'll get new things. Clearly that dream has to do with who you are, but also how you behave and all sorts of levels. So.